One of the things that are becoming more popular every year is Linux gaming. As you know, every year Linux gaming just becomes better and better. I would say over the past year of me using Linux on my main desktop as my main operating system for playing games and editing and making thumbnails, it has improved a lot. And specifically, I've run two different types of GPUs. I've run Nvidia RTX 2060, and then I've run a RX 6700, which is what I'm running right now. And both have performed really well in the past year. So one of the things that I did a while back, maybe like 5 months ago, was a ultimate guide tutorial for setting up Linux gaming. And that video it's kind of like outdated now, even though it's like 5 or 6 months old. There is a lot of like misinformation. So I just wanted to kind of give like an updated guide for this video of just how to set up Linux gaming, as I didn't go through everything. So one of the first things that, when you set up a Linux distro for gaming is you want to make sure that your Nvidia drivers are installed, as I know that the majority of people that are moving from Windows to Linux or trying out Linux for gaming or just as an operating system is they have a Nvidia card. So you want to make sure that, you got your Nvidia drivers installed, as it's a very important part to getting your like games working on Linux, because without it you'll be using the Novu drivers, which are very bare not they are pretty bare bones, but the Novu driver is just a basic driver for displaying stuff on your monitors. It doesn't have the source code to make your card run better for games, as the Nvidia drivers are proprietary. So the Novu developers, they can't and go look at that code and grab it and use it for their own. That's why the performance is like so shit on Novu. So for Fedora users, as the Nvidia driver isn't pre-installed on Fedora, it is installed on Nobara. So if you do have Nobara, you can grab a Nvidia ISO, which means that the Nvidia drivers will be pre-installed. But for Fedora, there's a couple of commands that you would need to do to actually get the Nvidia driver, and one is to enable the RPM Fusion repository, so the non-free and free repos, so then you can actually get the Nvidia driver. So in your terminal, you just want to open up your terminal, and you want to, this will be in the description, so you just want to copy and paste this command, which is sudo dnf install, and then we're going to grab this is the free Fusion repo. I'm pretty sure these are already enabled in Nobara, so I'm not going to do that command. And then the other one is the non-free one, which is pretty sure this is where the Nvidia driver actually is. It's on the non-free, as non-free is like the proprietary type of software. So this would be like if you wanted to install the system version of Discord, you would grab it from the non-free Fusion repository. And after that, you just want to do this command, which is to install the Nvidia driver. As there, sudo dnf install akmod-nvidia xorg x11 drv nvidia CUDA, and that will install your Nvidia drivers. And after that's installed, you just want to reboot your PC, and then the Nvidia driver will be in use. Now, when it comes to AMD users on Linux, you want to use the latest MESA and kernel that you have on your distro. So for most bleeding edge distros or rolling distros will provide MESA, like basically the latest point release of MESA. In the latest point release of MESA at the moment is MESA 23.2.1, but the main one that you want to be over is MESA 23.1, which enables the graphics pipeline, which if you don't know what the graphics pipeline is, it basically just solves stuttering when it comes to loading a shader cache in a game. As on Windows, for some reason, actually on Windows with DX11 games and below, there isn't GPL enabled on Windows on AMD cards, which is really odd. I don't know why it's not enabled, but on Linux with MESA 23.1, you get GPL, which means no stuttering in DXVK games, which DXVK translates DirectX 11, DirectX 10, and DirectX 9 games. So you won't get any stuttering. It will load the shader cache at the start before you actually get into the game, and then it will basically, you'll have no stutters. The FPS will just and the frame time graph will be really good. But for VKD3D, It's got its own way of loading shader cache, so you don't really experience stutters on the DirectX 12 games that are getting translated to Vulkan with VKD3D. You don't experience that. But if you're running a LTS distro like a Debian Stable or Ubuntu or Linux Mint, you won't have MESA 23.1. So for like Ubuntu based distros like Linux Mint and just Ubuntu, or even Pop! OS, if you want a newer version of MESA, even though you don't really need a newer version of MESA, maybe if you're running a 7000 series card, but for Pop! OS or Ubuntu Linux Mint, you want to add a custom PPA, which is basically just a repository that you add to Ubuntu. And the one we want to add is the one that's maintained by KISAK. I think that's how you say his name, and he updates Kiosk MESA pretty frequently, and it provides the latest point release, and it does support a wide variety of different Ubuntu versions. So it does support all the way down to 20.04, which is a very old release of Ubuntu. So I would definitely recommend updating Ubuntu if you're on 20.04. I've seen a couple people in the comments that are running 20.04. Like, please upgrade Ubuntu. I know some people need it for like specific work or something like that, but like if their software that they're using, it should support, you know, newer LTS versions of Ubuntu like 22.04. That's like the minimum that you should be running, because that's an LTS release, so that will be supported and like backported with packages. But as you can see on this website, there is instructions for installing adding the PPA. As you see here, sudo add apt repository, PPA chaos, whatever, and then you do sudo apt update, and that will give you the newest MESA. You just want to install it, then restart your computer, and then you'll have the newest MESA for your AMD card, or also your Intel card as well. I forget that Intel works on users MESA for graphical games and stuff like that. So if you definitely want the newest MESA if you're on Intel. So if you're using like an ARC GPU, you definitely want the newest MESA. As I know recently with MESA 23.2, I think there was GPR was enabled by default on Intel cards, so that means you won't get stutters on Intel cards. So that's really good as well. And as I said before, distros like Nobara, Fedora, Arch-based distros, Pop! OS, OpenSUSE, they'll have a MESA version above 23.1. Or like MESA Git, which is what Nobara uses. Uses a MESA Git version for gaming, and then he has another MESA version, which is the stable version of MESA that will be used for like you know, your browser and other types of applications that use the stable point release of MESA. So now that we've set up our drivers and we've got our computer up and running, if you have no problems, everything's working fine, and if you check if you're using the newest MESA and you have your Nvidia drivers installed, the next thing would be to install Steam, which is probably one of the most, I would say, easiest things, but there is a couple of things that some people may not know about, coming from Windows, that you may need to disable to get Steam running, I guess, well enough on Linux. So you want to install Steam from your store or through the terminal. I would suggest that you run the system version of Steam if you want like to use your system dependencies for Steam. So if you want to use like your Nvidia drivers that you just installed and you want to use it on the system version of Steam, or you want to use those system dependencies, then you would install the system version of Steam. So I'm using the system package version of Steam through the Fedora repos. Actually, it would be the Nobara repos, as Nobara has Steam pre-installed for you. But one of the first things you want to do is go into your settings, and you want to go to your downloads to disable the shader precache. Now, what the shader precache does is basically it downloads shader cache through your regular Steam downloads, because GPL wasn't implemented in a lot of drivers like Nvidia and AMD and Intel, so you had to use shader precaching. And same goes to the Steam Deck. I'm pretty sure the Steam Deck that's running like the stable version of Steam OS doesn't have MESA 23.1 yet, so it doesn't use GPL, and that's why people still download the shader pre-caching. But if you are on like the newer beta releases or whatever it is, that does use MESA 23.1, so you can actually disable pre-caching, as it's completely useless if you're over MESA 23.1. And then on Nvidia has GPL as well, so you can turn this off as well. So yeah, you just want to disable it, and then the next thing you guys want to do is enable Steam Play, which is Proton. So we go to the compatibility section and we want to enable Steam Play for supported titles. That will already be ticked, and then enable Steam Play for all other titles. So that means that like it will just enable it for every other game, even if the game technically doesn't have a Steam Deck verified on it. It will it will just use the Windows dependencies and to run the game through Proton. So you want to switch this. It will be like on Proton Experimental when you first enable run other titles with, and we don't want to use Proton Experimental. You can if you want to, but by default I like to use Proton 8.0-4, so whatever the newest like stable Proton is, because experimental can introduce more bugs per se. So depending on the game, like some games may have a specific patch with Proton Experimental, and that's when you just do the forced compatibility, which I'll show you in a sec. But you want to enable the 8.0-4, and then it will ask you to restart your Steam client, so then Proton can get enabled. And then that's it really for enabling Proton, disabling shader pre-cache, and the next thing we can do is actually just start playing games. So, a game like Apex Legends, for example, I play this game a lot on Linux, and it runs extremely well on Linux, surprisingly. It for some reason has better performance on Linux than it does on Windows, which is really weird. I don't know why. I guess it's just because how Vulkan works with translating. The DXVK developers did a really good job. But for this right here, we have some launch commands here as well. We have the +FPS_max, which is a Windows launch variable for Apex Legends to unlock the FPS cap. So you can set this to whatever you want. You can set this to, you can actually delete this and it will just go to your refresh rate, or you can do 0, which means unlimited, or 165 if you don't want to have this like stutter animation in the game at the moment, that if you go over 165, the game will start like stuttering with animations, which is really weird. But one of the commands that we have here is MangoHud and GameMode run. So what is game mode and what is MangoHud? Well, game mode, for example, if we just search this up real quick, it basically is a type of scheduler that is able to kind of like prioritize your games on Linux when you play them. It's kind of like I say here, it says a stopgap solution to problems with the Intel and AMD GPU power save or on-demand governors. So one of the problems in Linux, and this doesn't really happen anymore, but sometimes the power save or power options in Linux won't switch properly when you play games. So sometimes this doesn't happen to me because I've used without game mode and my games run perfectly fine. But one of the things is that it's able to put your GPU into like a performance mode as well, and it's able to fix things like whine sound stuff. So like basically like prioritization stuff. It just makes sure that the game runs at a high enough level on your system and nothing else really bothers it, right? It's just a basic just a basic scheduler. Most distros like Fedora, Nobara will have these pre-installed, but if you don't and you want to install it, you can, for like Ubuntu, it would just be sudo apt install game mode. For like art systems, I'm pretty sure it would just be sudo pacman, the dash and the capital S, and then game mode. And then for Fedora, which I'm pretty sure Fedora has it pre-installed, and set with the board, like I said just before, it will be pre-installed, so you can just start using it straight away. So the launch command that you use is just game mode run, and then you add a % command at the end with a space between it, and then that will actually use game mode for your game. Now the other one is MangoHud, and MangoHud is basically just an FPS overlay, which is, I would say, a lot better than the other one that's on Windows. I forgot what it's called, but This one is really cool. You can customize it a lot. I mean, you can customize the other one on Windows a lot as well, but I just prefer this one. And to get MangoHud installed, you can either install it separately, or you can install the GUI application, which is called Go Overlay, and that will install MangoHud as well. So that's usually what I do. Go Overlay is already installed, pre-installed on Nobara, but you would just search it on your store, you'd find it, you click install, and then basically we can just launch Go Overlay and we can start customizing MangoHud. As you can see here, this is what MangoHud looks like. I'll show you a preview. You can add transparency, you can add random corners, you can change the position. You can also change its orientation. So if you want, you could have it like a big line across the top of your monitor, or you can have it in a little box, which is what I prefer, as when I do benchmark videos, it's more easier to look at everything. But if you want to, we can go to metrics and we can enable all types of different things for your CPU, your GPU. Then we can go to extras as well if you want to look at like what the wine version you're using, the engine version, see if game mode's on, frame timing, FPS. And then we want to go back to Steam and we want to go back to properties on Apex Legends and we want to type MangoHud equals 1. Now this is for Vulkan games only, so usually the normal launch command would just be MangoHud. It would literally just be that. You need to put this in the command, the %command% so that it actually activates. And then the other launch command here, now this is to do with Wayland and Wayland screen tearing, as screen tearing is getting supported on Wayland very soon. It's actually already merged in Wayland 23.2 and then it's been merged in MESA 23.3. So if you have those packages installed, you can use screen tearing on KDE Plasma with this launch variable. After doing some research through the KDE GitLab, I was able to find that using this launch variable disables the DRM atomic AMS thing in the Linux kernel, which is for different async flipping. Basically, it changes like based on like your compositor, so it disables it so then you can actually get screen tearing on games. It's a bit confusing, but using this launch variable can give you screen tearing under Wayland if you're on KDE Plasma, and basically that's it. So like I said before, you can use basically you can use whatever Proton version you want on any of these games. Not you can't use Proton 7, I would say. Would you prefer to use Proton 8 or higher? Until, you know, I don't know, like Proton 8 becomes obsolete from some other newer version. But Proton 8-0-4 does work fine on Apex Legends, so you don't really need any other versions of Proton to get Apex working. And yeah, you can just click play and it should just launch. You can see there the EAC anti-cheat launched, and then there's our MangoHud, and yeah. We can have a look there. We're running MESA 23.3, which is the Git version of it for Nobara. And yeah, the game is loading up. We can see there as well, game mode is running. We can just load in. And one of the things that we can notice here is that GPL is actually loading at the moment. So like I said before, it's going to try and load all the shaders before you play the game. So you can see here our CPU's at around 97%. And basically, if we just look at this, it will start to go down and then the GPU will start to get filled up and then the frame timing should just be like a straight line, basically. You can see that. Now it's basically done and our frame timing is smoothing out slowly. It's like almost done, I would say. So the frame timing doesn't look that correct. But yeah, as you can see here, the game is running. This ain't no emulation type shit. This is all being translated through DX3K and Wine, and we can just basically start playing like this new seasonal event that's happening at the moment, which is called Doppelgangers. It's just such a weird name for an event, but they do have some cool skins, I guess. I haven't played Apex in a while. But yeah, we can also test up some other games. Like I've been playing Halo Infinite recently, which does work on Linux if you're running an AMD card. If you're running on Nvidia, for some reason Nvidia still hasn't fixed their drivers for Halo Infinite, so the FPS is like it's basically stuck at like 60 and the frame timing is like really weird. But the game doesn't crash anymore. They fixed that, but the FPS part for some reason does not want to go above 60 FPS. But if you're running on an AMD card, you should be able to launch it with Proton Experimental. That is what the Steam developers, Valve developers recommend you use, is Proton Experimental. I have Proton Experimental Bleeding Edge, which is basically like the most unstable version of Proton Experimental that gets built like 3 times a day, basically, which includes multiple different patches and stuff for different games. So I always like to run Bleeding Edge just for like the latest, the latest patches from Valve. And yeah, I played this yesterday, like all fucking day, because of the new season 5 that just came out. And yeah, it runs really well as well. I only lost around, I think maybe like 10 FPS versus running Halo Infinite on Windows. So that's one of the things, is like VKD 3D. It's only been out for like 2 years, I think. So it needs more time to mature. Because like I said before, some games, like the majority of games, will perform better on Linux through like DXVK, and some will perform better on VKD3D. But I would definitely say that like VKD3D still needs some time to mature, and the Valve developers and engineers are really working on it like a lot, to getting, you know, Halo Infinite, multiple DirectX 12 games running really well through VKD 3D. And as you can see here, yeah, the game is working, it's loading, character should spawn in soon, and yeah, we can just start playing Halo Infinite if we want to. And basic functions of the game do work. Originally, this game didn't work at all, and then Glorious Eggroll, person who makes Proton GE and Wine GE, he applied some patches and got the game to actually work, with some other developers helping out. And then Valve made it work under AMD, and then fixed like the majority of the bugs, like the polygon textures got fixed. And yeah, now the game runs perfectly after around, I would say, a year of VKD3 development. Now the game runs perfectly fine. And that's one of the things as well, is like there's a lot of games that work under Linux, like Rainbow Six Siege, for example. This game has worked for like a year. It did break recently because of the recent update. Had some implementation added that Wine did not support, so that had to be merged, and now the game works again. But it's the same thing with like Battlefield 2042. This game also works under Proton perfectly fine, but you get kicked because of that anti-cheat. And like I said before, that's like one of the great things about Linux gaming, is like, since Proton and Wine and DXVK and VKD3D are all open source, so anyone can contribute to the source code and improve and make games work under Linux. And that's what happened with Rainbow. Like, one of the developers, not even like a developer really. I mean, I think he was just starting out, or maybe he did have some background, but I don't really know. I just saw him, you know, talking on GitHub about Rainbow, that got broken recently, and then he decided to make a merge request in Wine to implement that feature that was implemented in Rainbow, to then implement it in Wine, so then the game could actually launch. And after that was merged, the Proton devs pulled it in. Glorious Eggroll released the newest version of Proton GE, which included that patch, and then Rainbow Six Siege worked. And that's the same thing for Battlefield 2042. One of the VKD3D developers that was working on certain patches was able to fix the bunch of like Vulkan Wine errors that were coming up when you tried to launch the game, and then that was it. The game launched, it worked. You could buy things in the shop. You could look at the battle pass. You could customize guns and characters. You could load it into a match, but you would get kicked because of the anti-cheat. And now Battlefield 2042 has switched their anti-cheat over to their own proprietary kernel level anti-cheat. So that's really cool that they've decided to do that. One of the next things that we want to do is set up MangoHud for FLATPAK. If you don't know what FLATPAK is, it's basically its own little sandbox, which has its own dependencies for running an application. And Flatpak's being used as like the main application on multiple different distros now. So, you know, apps like Bottles or Lutris or Heroic will require you to install the FLATPAK version of MangoHud and some other dependencies as well if you want to get like the OBS VK capture to work, or there's a bunch of other plugins that you will need, but we're going to do just the MangoHud FLATPAK, which is pretty easy to do. We can just do FLATPAK install MangoHud, and then it's going to look for matches. We want to select the system version of FlatHub, or if you're using a user version, you would select that one, not the beta one. I have the beta one because of like applications like I want to use OBS beta, so that's why I have that. But if you look here, we want to grab the free desktop platform Vulkan layer MangoHud, and we want to grab the latest version, which is 23.08. So we want to go 4, and then I don't even have it installed, it seems. So we just click Y, and it's going to download it, and now it's installed. So now we can launch Bottles, for example. Now I don't know if that's the right version. I don't know if Bottles is upgraded to the. I haven't even set up Bottles yet. That's because I don't even use you know, third-party launchers anymore, because the majority of my games are on Steam now. But I don't know if Bottles has updated to 23.08, so we're gonna find out after it's done setting up. Alright, and now Bottles is done. We can start using it. We will just create a random bottle with the gaming environment, so it's going to install a bunch of dependencies required for like applications to work, or different games that require different Windows DLL dependencies. We can just call this games. Usually what I'll do is I would create separate bottles for separate applications. So I would do like EA bottle, a Ubisoft bottle, a like Epic Games bottle maybe as well, and then I would install the applications in there. So I guess this is a tutorial of how to set up bottles as well, because we're going to set up MangoHud with FLATPAK, so why not install some applications in here. If you read through here, it says installing DXVK, it's installing VKD3D, it's going to install a bunch of Microsoft dependencies and fonts as well, just to basically get everything set up for us so we can run different software that are related to gaming, like third-party launchers. And this works with the majority of applications like Rockstar, EA, Ubisoft, Epic Games, even some notorious third-party launchers like that space sci-fi game launcher that costs like $50 to like get in or whatever, and it costs like a couple $1,000s to buy like a ship or whatever it is. That game works as well, and our bottle's created. Before we do this, we want to grab the latest Wine GE version, as when we choose the gaming bottle, it's going to use Soda, and Soda 7.0-9 is really old. I think it's like a year old now, and it's based on Wine 7, not Wine 8, so it is really old, I would say. So you want to grab the latest, just a Wine GE Proton 8-20, or whatever the latest version is for you. If you're watching this video, maybe like a month later, it will be completely different, and we just want this to download. Now that it's installed, we can go back to our games, we go to our settings, we go to runner, and we select Wine GE Proton 8-20. And basically, we want to leave our synchronization with async, and this is where we show here. So as we can see here, it's not using the 23.08 version of MangoHud, so we want to grab the 22 version. So we do FLATPAK install MangoHud, we select system, we select number 3, we download this one, and now it's done, and we want to relaunch bottles to actually get the little tick so we can actually enable it. As you can see here, settings, we can scroll down, and now we can see here, MangoHud is available. So now we can click tick, and then we can see here, Feral Game Mode, which is the same one that we were talking before on Steam. So we can enable that one, and then OBS Game Capture is the VK capture. I won't show how to install that, as I do not remember the name of the FLATPAK dependency that's required. But as we can see here, we've got everything set up. It's using the latest VKD3D, the latest DXVK. So now we can just do install program. It seems like no installs have been found. The repository is unreachable. No install is compatible with this bottle. Interesting. As we can see here now, it shows up. One of the things is Bottles is getting a big redesign at the moment. It's called Bottles Next. So this might be completely irrelevant in like a couple of months, I would say. So if you are watching this video and it doesn't look like this, it's because Bottles has been redesigned to Bottles Next. But as you can see here, this is where we can install some of the applications that are supported through Bottles. As you can see here, there's plenty of choose from. We could install Ubisoft Connect, so we'll do that one, for example. It comes up with this little dialog, start installation. It's going to install it for you. It's going to install the required dependencies for Ubisoft Connect. And yeah, we'll get back to it when it's fully installed. Okay, as we can see here, Ubisoft Connect is now installed. And it's added a shortcut for us, so now we can just click launch. And it will launch it for us. It shouldn't take that long to launch, I would say. And as we can see here, it is now downloading the latest Ubisoft Connect update. Yeah, that's basically it. Like, it's pretty easy to get these applications set up and running. If you are running older hardware, you're gonna have to use Wine D3D. What was it? Wine D3D, 3DD, something like that. Wine D3D is such a weird name to say, but basically that is a translation layer to OpenGL, so that older hardware can get these applications working, as we use DXVK and VKD3D, which requires Vulkan 1.3. So if you don't have a graphics card that supports Vulkan 1.3, you're gonna need to use Wine D3D. D3D. It's such a weird name, but you want to use the it's like an environment variable. Just search up how to enable Wine D3D launch command for Proton, and there'll be somewhere some Reddit things that says what environment you need to use to get the game working. It's actually one of the issues that I've had recently with Roblox. A lot of people who comment on my videos are running really old hardware on some laptop, and they're like, oh, the game doesn't launch, why is it not launching? And I'm like, well, what hardware do you have? And it's like a 10-year-old laptop that doesn't support Vulkan 1.3, so they can't use DXVK, which is used in Vinegar, which is the app that I used in the video. So then you have to go and change the API to like native Vulkan or OpenGL for it to work properly. But as you can see here, Ubisoft Connect is launched. It's working. We can log in. We can start downloading games, and we can just launch the game from Ubisoft Connect, and it will work basically. And MangoHud should work as well. One of the other things is that MangoHud in FLATPAK has its own config for how it should show up as an FPS overlay. So it's not going to use the same one that we used in Go overlay. So what we have to do for it to see our system config of MangoHud, so then it can actually use the same config that we used in our system with Go overlay, is a simple command that basically overrides the permission for every application in FLATPAK to see the system MangoHud config, which is FLATPAK override filesystem xdg-config MangoHud, and that will basically give us the permission to see the system config of MangoHud, so that MangoHud shows up with the same stuff that you enabled on Go overlay. So for that to work, you'll need to reboot your PC, and then that should just work straight out of the gate on any FLATPAK application that uses MangoHud. We can also have a look at like some applications, like if you want Proton GE or some other Proton versions, there's two applications that you can use. I use Proton Plus because I don't use any other type of Proton version, because I know in the other one, which is called Proton Up, there is a particular one that's not included on Proton Plus that allows you to set up mod managers. So if you want to set up different mod managers for like Skyrim with like Vortex, you would use that Proton version for some reason. There we go. So we want to go add a version. and it's called Steam Tinker Launch, which like I said before, allows us to install different mod managers, like I think it's called MO2 and Vortex. So if you want to set up mod managers, you would use Steam Tinker Launch. But for me, I use Proton Plus just to import the latest Proton GE into Steam. Or if Bottles doesn't update their repository for grabbing the latest Proton GE, I'll use it here to inject that latest one, or a DXVK version as well to get the latest one. But they're pretty up to date now, where I don't have to do that. But for Steam, if you want the latest Proton GE, which I don't have the latest one at the moment, I'm using 8-19, so I'm gonna have to grab the new one. And basically, when you download this and it's like done downloading and installing, you just want to restart Steam and then relaunch it, and then you should be able to select the Proton GE on force compatibility. We can also have a look at LUTRIS. This is another favorite application that people like to use. Now, I barely use this application. I just like using Bottles. It's just more like, I prefer the UI versus LUTRIS. LUTRIS feels a bit more confusing to me. I can still use it, and I definitely mained it before for all of my third-party launches, or like if I want to set up maybe like some pirated games, I would use LUTRIS or Bottles. But you can see here, it's just checking for runtime updates, and then it will launch eventually. As you can see here, now it's launched. And we just want to go to preferences. We want to go to, I think it's like runners. We'll just go all the way down to wine. Click this little button here, and then we grab the latest Wine GE version. It's going to download it for us. And then after that's done downloading, you can just basically install any type of application. Now, LUTRIS does use these like community install scripts, which kind of just normalizes how applications get installed, kind of like how Bottles does it. Bottles like installs dependencies for you. Like these scripts do the exact same thing. They just install dependencies for the application to work properly, and sometimes these scripts will be outdated. So just be wary if you install an application and it doesn't work. I would definitely try a different launcher like Bottles or Heroic, as they're more like maintained by developers who actually work on the application, not just community scripts, as they are community. So it's kind of like those scripts can be outdated because that person decided to not, keep up track with the script installer. But for the majority of apps like EA, Ubisoft, Epic Games, all those apps should install perfectly fine. So if we see here, we can do, I think it's called EA Desktop. No, it's called EA, just EA. No, I think we'll just install the Blizzard application for now, because the EA one's a bit hard to find, I'm not gonna lie, because of the naming of it. But as you can see here, this is one of the install scripts. We can just click install, standard, continue. It's going to download the battle.net application. See here, it's creating a wine prefix for us. And this is one of the great things is like these applications, they set up the wine prefix for you. As before, without these applications, it was really difficult to set up different like prefixes if you didn't really know what you were doing. But now it's actually pretty easy. It gives us a log as well that we can look at of like what's happening, what's it like creating, what's it, dependencies it's installing, fonts, etc. Now, as it says here, it says do not attempt to log into battle.net. Once battle.net has finished installing and the login window appears, simply close it. You'll log in the next time you start the app. So we want to go through here. It's going to update the application to the newest battle.net. Okay, as you can see here, we want to actually install battle.net now, as it's grabbed the latest installer for us. Now, I don't use battle.net anymore because Overwatch is on Steam, and I don't play games like Diablo or some of the other games that are on there. I don't play those types of games, so I don't even like I said, I don't even really use LUTRIS or Bottles anymore. It's like the majority of my games are on Steam, and Proton works really well with those. And okay, now that the login window has showed up, we just want to click continue, and then we want to hit close. And then it's going to end the installation, and it should create a shortcut for us in the library. section. Sometimes this may take a little bit. As you can see, it's about to end. It just closed it. There we go. So now it's created a Blizzard Battle.net. This is the system application of LUTRIS that we're using here, because on Nobara, LUTRIS is pre-installed. But for any like application, we want to select this little arrow. It's going to bring a configure. We want to go to our runner options, and we can have a look through here. We've got, we've got DXVK, VKD3D. These are enabled. We're using the right wine version as well. If we want to set up like any games that use anti-cheats like BattleEye and Easy Anti-Cheat, and they have enabled Proton support for those anti-cheats, we need to enable these runtimes so then the anti-cheats can actually work. We can also go to our system options. This will show us like, MangoHud, so we can click enable for that. Any other things like GameScope, which is a type of micro compositor that allows you to do things like FSR upscaling, stretch res, a bunch of other things. And GameScope is developed by Valve, so you can it's like safe to use as well. It gets updated very frequently as Steam Deck uses it for gaming. And we can have a look here. There's a bunch of environment variables enabled as well for like different games to work properly, like Overwatch 2 or Diablo. Just so like this is like these environment variables like right here. These are for Nvidia. So like the disk cache skip is for basically when you launch a game on Nvidia. The GPL that loads the cache will be deleted after you close the game, and it'll have to recreate that cache, which is quite annoying. So what this does is it basically skips the cleanup when you launch the game or close the game, either one, so that your shader cache doesn't get deleted, and then it won't have to do the whole loading thing on your CPU to actually load the cache. And it's got a path here as well of where the shader cache will go, and then just to make sure that it's actually enabled for the disk cache. And yeah, that's basically it. We can click save, we can click play, and it's going to launch the login window for you to start, installing games and playing games on Battle.net. If you want to play like Call of Duty as well, there is some Call of Duties like Black Ops 4. I know that game works on Linux, even though no one plays it anymore, which is very sad because I actually like that Call of Duty a lot. And yeah, there's nothing really else left, I would say, for setting up Linux gaming. It's gotten super easy to set up games on Linux, and it's became like a second nature to me when it comes to setting up games on Linux. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and you've understood how these things kind of work. Just like a simple tutorial of how to set up Steam, bottles, LUTRIS. I could show you Heroic as well, but that one's like super easy. You just need to sign in with your Epic Games account, download the wine version, and you can just start playing, unless it's like some like anti-cheat game or whatever. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like. This recording has gone for a very long time, as I definitely started and said a couple wrong sentences. So this has been recording for a very long time. So I will see you guys in the next video. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to. We are halfway to almost 750 subs, like almost. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.